Good evening, teacher and classmates. And in this activity, I am reading to the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Okay, I started to read this since the page number 5 to number 15. Okay, okay, okay. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Lived. Mr. and Mr. Dursley of number 4 Reed Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expected to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Okay, Mr. Dursley was the direction of a film called Goonies, which made dudes. He was a big beef man with hardly any neck. Although he did have a very large moustache, Mr. Dursley was thin and blond and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fence spying on the neighborhood. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley. In their opinion, there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret, and their greatest fear was that somebody would discover it. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Mr. Potter was Mr. Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mr. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister because his sister is and her good for nothing husband, whereas, Dursley as it was possible to be. The Dursley shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son, but they had never even seen him. This boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. He didn't want Dudley missing with the children like that. Mr. and Mr. Dudley would wake up on the dull, gray Tuesday or story starts. There was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest that strange and mysterious thing would someday be happening all over the country. Mr. Dursley hummed as they picked out his most boring day for work, and Mr. Dursley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his high chair. Okay, none of them noticed a large train of flutter past the window. At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase, picked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and they tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the walls. It'll take Cholet. Mr. Dudley has left the house. He got into his car and baked off number 4 Drive. It was on the corner of the street that they noticed first sign of the sometimes peculiar a reading map. For a second, Mr. Dudley didn't realize what he'd seen. Then heard. Then he shook his head around looked again. There was a table cat standing on the corner of Private Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. What could she have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of the light. Mr. Dursley blinked and started at the cat. It started back as Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road. He watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the same cat said private drive. Now looking at the scene, cats could read maps for scenes. Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mint. As they drove toward town, the town of nothing expect a large of drives hoping to that day. But on the edge of town dunes were dug out his mint so that something also as she sat in the usual morning traffic jam. She couldn't help noticing that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in clothes. Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. The get-ups you say on you people. He supposed this was some stupid new fashion. He drummed his fingers on the street wheel and his eyes fell on a hoodie of this. Were those standing? It close by. Okay. They were rifled, excited together. Mr. Dudley wasn't ready to see that a couple of them weren't young at heart. Why that man had had to be older than he was and wearing an emerald green cloak. The never of him, but then it struck Mr. Dudley that this was probably some silk stunt. These people were obvious collection for some time. Yes, that would be it. The traffic moved on and a few minutes later, Mr. Dudley arrived in the Gurney's parking lot. He leaned back on drive. Mr. Dudley always sat with his back to the window in office on the ninth floor. If hadn't, he might have found it harder to concentrate on drinks that morning. He didn't see the owls swooping past in broad daylight, so people down in the street did. They pointed and gasped open-mouthed, as out after all sped overhead. Most of them had never seen an owl in nighttime. Mr. Dudley, however, had a perfectly normal every morning. He yelled at 5 different people. He made several important telephone calls and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good until lunchtime when he thought to stretch his legs and walk across the road to buy himself a pound from the bakery. He'd forgotten all about the people in clocks until they passed a group of them next to the bakers. He eyed them angrily as passed. He didn't know why, but they made him unsay. His bones were whispering excitedly to Andy Cowley, see a single collecting thing. It was only on his way back past them, clutching a large dog in a bag, that they caught a few words of what they were saying. The Potter's that right, that's what I heard. Yes, there's some hurry. Mr. Dudley stopped dead. Fear flooded him. He looked back at the whispers. He wanted to say something to but to get thought that of it. He dashed back across the road, hurried up to his office, and knocked as the secretary not to disturb him, saved his telephone and had almost finished dialing his number when he changed his mind. He put the receipt back down and stroked his mustache, thinking, no, he was being stupid. Potter wasn't such an unusual name. He was sure there were lots of people called Potter who had a son called Harry. Come to think of he wasn't. He's never sure his nephew was called Harry. He'd never even seen the boy. It might have been Harry or Harold. There wasn't no point in worrying Mr. Dursley. She always got to accept any mention of sister. She didn't blame her if he had a sister like that, but all the same those people in clocks she found it a lot harder to concentrate on drive that afternoon and when left building at clock 5 o'clock. She was still so worried that she walked straight into someone just outside the door. Sorry, he went as the thinly old man stumbled and almost fell. I was a few seconds before Mr. Dudley realized that the man was wearing a violent cloak. He didn't seem at all upset at being almost knocked to the ground. On the contrary, his face split into wide smile, and he said quacky, squeak voice that made a saucy state, "Don't be sorry, miss, my dear, sir, for nothing could upset me today, rejoice, for you know who has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy day." And and the old man hooked Mr. Dudley around the middle and walked off. Mr. Dudley stood rooted to the spot. He had been wounded a complete stranger. He also thought he had been called a muggle. Whatever that was, he was rattled. He worried to high car and set off for home, hoping he was imagining things which he had never hoped before because he didn't approve to imagination. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing they saw, and he didn't improvise his mood, was the table that he spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one. It had some markings around his eyes. "Sure," said Mr. Dudley loudly. The cat didn't move. I just gave him a stern look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dudley wondered, trying to pull himself together. He let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mr. Dudley had had a nice normal day. She told him of the dinner all about Mr. next door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word. Once Mr. Dudley tried to action normally when Dudley had been put to bed. He went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. And finally, watchers everywhere have reported the nation's owns. Okay, okay. Well, Ted said, the waterman, I don't know about that, but it's not only the ones that have been hacking ugly today. Views as apart at Kent, Yorkshire and Dundee have been falling into the meet that inside to the rain I promised yesterday. They've they've had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating Bonfire Night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise a wet night tonight. Mr. Dudley sat frozen in his armchair, shootings. stars all over Britain, owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in clocks all over the place, and they whisper and whisper about the Potters. Mr. Dudley came into the living room carrying two cups of tea. It was not go. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervous. Petunia dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? Has he had better Mr. Dudley? Looked shocked and angry. After all they normally pretend she didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff on the news. Mr. Dudley mumbled how shooting starts, and there were a lot of funny-looking people in today. So, snapped Mr. Dudley. Well, I used to go. Maybe it was something to do with, you know, her throat. Mr. Dudley shipped her throat pulse lip. Mr. Dudley wondered whether that that her hit the name Potter. He decided, he decided he didn't dare. Instead, he said casual as cold. Their son had bet about the age now, would he? I suppose so, said Mr. Dudley. Stiffy, what's his name again? Howard, isn't it? Harry must be a common name, if you ask me. Oh yes, said Mr. Dudley. He felt seeking horrible. Yes, I quiet. I agree. She didn't say another word. The soldiers, as they went upstairs to bed, while Mr. Dudley was in the bathroom. Mr. Dudley crept to the bedroom window and peered down into the frozen. The cat was still there. It was starting to provide drives thoughts I were waiting for something. Was the imagination things could all this have anything to do with the Potters? With the Potters? If it did, if it got out that they were related to a pile of, well, he didn't think he could bear it. The Dursley go to in the bed. Mr. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning Milan over his mint. How very once he was, Mr. Dursley might have been drifting into an unusual sleep, but the cat not the world outside was shown no signs to sleeping. It was sitting as still as a statue, its eyes fixed unblinking on the far corner of Private Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when a car door slammed on the next street. No went towards snow, saw it overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat moved at all. A man appeared on the corner. The cat had been watching, appeared so suddenly and suddenly you have thought. He popped out the ground, the cat's tail twitched, and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever been seen on Private Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old, judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his head. He was wearing long robes of purple cloth that swept the ground, and high-heeled buckled boots. His blue eyes were light bright and sparkling. His veins had moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though he had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realize that he had just arrived in the street where everything from his name to his boots was unwelcome. He was passing Romani in his cloak, looking for something, but he did seem to realize he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly at the cat, which was still staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. The, the chocolate and mothers I should have known. He found what he was looking for in his inside pocket. It seemed to be silver cigarette lighter. He faked it open, held it up in the air, and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out. Wait there a little pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered into darkness 12 times. He clicked the put order until the only lights left on the Wall Street there were two tiny pinpricks in the distance which were the eyes of the cat watching him with annoying looked out of their window. No even with Mr. Dudley they wasn't able to see anything that was happening down of pavement. Dumbledore slipped the put outer back inside the block and off down the street toward number 4. There he got down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it move. After a moment he spoke to it. Francis, saying you here, Professor McGonagall. She turned to smile the happy Davy, but he had gone. Instead he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses exactly the shape of the markings the cat had around his eyes. She too was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her back hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I never seen a cat so stiffy. You're stiff if you've been sitting on a brick all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day? When you couldn't have celebrating I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh yes, I'm celebrating all right," she said impatiently. "You'd think they'd a bit more careful, but no, even the Muggles have noticed something going on. It was on the news." She jerked her head back at the Dursley's dark living room window. "I heard the flux of holes shuttle starts where they're not completely stupid. They weren't bound to notice. Sometimes shots start down in Kent. I I'll bet what that was. Little Diggle. He never much sense." "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We've had precious little to celebrate 11 years." "I know that," said Professor McGonagall, irritable, "but that's no reason to lose our heads. People are vain, doddering, careless, out of the streets in broad daylight, not even dresser. They muggle clothes, some rumours." She threw a sharp, sideways glance at Dumbledore here as thought, hoping he was going to help sometime, but he didn't. So she went on. "A fine time it would be if, on the very year you know who seems to have disappeared, as last at last, the Muggles found out about Uziel. I suppose they already have gone, Dumbledore?" "It certainly seems so," said Dumbledore. "We have much to do thank for your care of a lemon drop." "At what?" "A lemon drop they a kind of muggle sweet in a rain of fun up." "No thank you," said Professor McGonagall coldly, as though she didn't think this was the moment for lemon drops. "As I say, even you know who has gone." "My dear Professor, surely a sensible person yourself can call him by his name. All this you know who nonsense. For 11 years I have been trying to persuade people how kind of me. His proper name Voldemort." Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was instinct to lemon drops seems not noticed. It it all gets so confusing if we kept saying you know who. I have never seen any reason for weakness of saying Voldemort's name. I know you haven't, said Professor McGonagall, sounding half expressive, half admiring, but you're different. Everyone knows you're the only you know are right. Voldemort was frightened of you flatter me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort has powers I will never have. It it seemed that Professor McGonagall had reached the point she was most anxious to discuss. The real reasons had been waiting a cold, hard day for Nathan a cat, nor that woman had fixed Dumbledore with such a piercing stare she did know it was aimed at whether everyone was saying. She was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was choosing another lemon drop and didn't not answer. What they're saying, she pressed on, is that last night Voldemort turned up in Godric's Hollow. He went to find the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter are they did. Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped. Lily and James, I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. How Albus. Dumbledore reached out and patted her on the shoulder. I know, she said relief. Professor McGonagall's voice trembled as she went on that not all they same tried to kill the Potter's son Harry but she could kill that little boy. No one knows why or how, but they saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's powers somehow broke, and that's why he's gone. Dumbledore's nobly gloomy. It's true, faltered Professor McGonagall after all he's done, all the people's killed. He couldn't kill a little boy. It's just a studying of all the things to stop him. But how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess, said Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a left hanger and labeled her nail Ever's face beneath her spectacles. Yes, yes, said Professor McGonagall, and never, I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you held for a place. I come to bring Harry to aunt and uncle. The only family he has left now. You don't mean you can't mean the people who live here? Cried Professor McGonagall, jumping to her feet and pointing at number 4, Dumbledore. You can't, I've been watching them all day. You couldn't think two people who are less like us. And they got this son. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street, screaming for sweets. Harry Potter commonly fear it's the best place for him, said Dumbledore firms. His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he's older. I've written them a letter. A letter? Repeated Professor McGonagall, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore, you think you can explain fantastic clever. These people will never understand him. He will be famous, a legend. I wasn't surprised if today I was known as Harry Potter Day in future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child or you will know his name. Exactly, said Dumbledore, looking very serious over the top of his half-moon glasses. It would enough to turn any boy's head famous for which he can walk and talk, famous for something he won't ever remember. Can you see how much better off all be growing up away from that until he's ready to take you it ways to try to have it with something as important as this. I would truly have it with my life, said Dumbledore. I'm not saying his heart is in the right place, said Professor McGonagall coldly, but you can't pretend he's not careless. He doesn't answer to what's that. A low rumbling sound had broken the silence around them. I grew stallions louder as the door locked, and down the street some single headwind issued a roar as they both looked up at the sky, and a hoop motorcycle fell out of the air and landed on right in front of them. If the motorcycle was hurt, it was nothing to the man sitting after it. He was almost twice as dark as the normal man, and the last 5 times as white. He looked simple to be allowed, and so with long lengths of bubbly bash hadn't built it most of his face. He hadn't his of trash can lights, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast muscular arms he wasn't holding up loads of blankets. Hagrid, said Dumbledore, sounding relieved at last, and where did you get that motorcycle? Borrowed it, Professor Dumbledore. Here, said the Giant, climbing careful of the motorcycle as they spoke. You seem black lent it to me. I got him, sir. No problems were there? No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got to him out all right before the mob started swarming around. He fell asleep as we was flying over Bristol. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent forward over the bundle of banklets. Inside, just visible was a baby was fast asleep under tuft of jet-black hair over his forehead. They couldn't see curiously shaped cut like a bolt of lightning. "It does wear," whispered Professor McGonagall. "Yes," said Dumbledore. "He'll he'll have he will have that scar forever. Couldn't you do something about it, Dumbledore?" "Could I say goodbye to him, sir?" asked Hagrid. He bent his great shaggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy whisker kiss. Then suddenly Harry left the hall like a wanted dog. Professor McGonagall, you wake the muggles. Sorry, sobbed Harry, taking out a large powder handkerchief and burying his face in it. But can't that night, Lilian Jane did, and poor little Harry Potter there lived these muggles. Yes, yes, I'm very sad. But get a grip on yourself, Harry, or well phone Professor McGonagall whispered, patting Harry's finger on the arms. Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. She laid Harry gently on the doorstep, took a leather fold out of the clock, took it inside Harry's locked, and they come back to the other two for a full minute. The three of them stood and looked as a little bundle Harry showed them the shock of Sarah McGonagall blinked furiously, and the twinkling light, as usually shone from Dumbledore's eyes, seemed to have gone warm. "We shall see you soon, I expect, Professor McGonagall," said Dumbledore, nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew her nose in rapidly. Dumbledore turned and walked back down the street. On the corner he stopped and took out the silver foot powder. He clicked it once, and 12 bulbs of light sped back through the street lamps to save Private Drive glowed cuddly orange, and she could make out a tiny task sneaking around the corner at the other end of the street. She couldn't just see the bundle of blankets on the step on number 4. "Good luck, Harry," she murmured. He turned on his heel and wiped the sweat off his cloak. He was gone. A razor roofless beneath heaves of purple drift which lay silent and tidy under Pinsky sky, the very last place you once expected an astonishing things to. Okay, okay. The final page is saying, "Happen Harry Potter, rolled over inside his blanket without waking up." One. Okay. s- One small hand closed on the leather raising him and his left, on not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he would be walking in a few hours' time by Mr. Dursley's screams, as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles, nor that he would spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that this very moment people meeting in secret all over the country were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voice to Harry Potter, the world who lived. Okay, it's the finish. Thanks, teacher and classmates. Okay, thanks. Bye.